Hello and welcome to day number 2 of the Unwind Sew Along. Today we are going to be working on our ruffles and our pockets. So we're going to be prepping all of our ruffles and adding the ruffles to the pockets and sewing the pockets to our front joggers. So if you remember from yesterday, I said that I was going to interface my woven for my ruffles, and I have in fact done that. This will just help it in the wash not get all crumpled and wrinkled and have to be ironed 1,000 times. So yeah, I'm using cotton woven and I used iron-on interfacing on the backs. So the first thing we're going to do with our ruffles, excuse me, we're going to fold them in half lengthwise. So we're just going to fold them wrong sides together like this. And we are going to press them. Okay, so now we have all of our ruffle pieces prepped. We have them folded in half, wrong sides together, and pressed really nicely. And the next step is to sew our gathering stitches. So if you've followed my sew-alongs before, you know that I love a double gathering stitch. So we like to sew about 1/4 inch away from the edge and then another 1/2 inch away from that. And another trick that I use is to use a different color bobbin thread than top thread. So here I have white in my bobbin thread and I have a gray in my top thread. I like to use embroidery thread for my bobbins. I get pre-wound embroidery thread. It kind of has a satin feel, and it allows the fabric to slide along it really nicely. So for gathering, it is great. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and sew some gathering stitches. So for that, we turn up our length to a 4, and we leave the tension a little bit loose, so on the kind of the 3 end of things. And we're going to go ahead and sew 1/4 inch away from the edge all the way down with no back stitching. There we have it. We've got a nice stitch there. You can see that side's gray. That side you can't really see because it's white. And we know that the bobbin is white, so we know that we're going to be pulling on the white threads when we go together. Okay, so now all I do is I line up that first stitch with the edge of my presser foot, and then I sew another stitch all the way down to the other side. Perfect. So there you have our double gathering stitches. We're going to do that with all of the other pieces as well. Now we're going to start gathering. So to do that, we are going to find our bobbin threads. For me, it is my white threads. So it's nice and easy to find. I just pick out my white threads, separate it from the others. Okay, I've got my white threads in this hand, and then I'm just going to gently guide the fabric along those stitches. Just push it along all the way down. And there we have it. It's going to look something like that, and it's going to want to curl on itself, and that is a-okay. Okay, so now we're going to work on sewing our ruffles to our pockets. So we're going to start pinning it along this edge right here. And then we're going to even out our gathers. Okay, so when your ruffle is all pinned to your pocket, it'll look something like that. All the nice even ruffles. Beautiful. We're going to do that same thing with the other pocket, and then we are going to put it through our machine at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, now that we have it all pinned, we're going to take our pocket lining and place it on top like this, right sides together. Make sure that funny angle piece on your pocket lining is lined up with the pocket. The side will line up with the side of the jogger, and the short end will line up with the top of your jogger. And we are going to pin that in place as well. There we go. And now we need to sew that in place. So we need to use a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and it needs to be a stretch stitch. So that can be a triple stitch, that can be a zigzag stitch, that can be a lightning stitch. Any of those would work for this. If it applies, we're going to use a length of 3. And we're just going to sew that ruffle in between pieces. There we go. Inside, there's the outside, nice even ruffles. To give it a little bit of extra stability, I like to run this edge through my serger, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so I just run that edge through my serger. And the next thing we are going to do is flip it out like this and give it a good press. All right, I've given it a good press now. And for those of you who have seen my videos before, you probably already know this magic trick. But for those who have not, I'm going to show you how I get rid of those ugly gathering stitches that are still left on the outside there. I'm going to flip it to the back side and find the bobbin thread. I'm going to pull that out a little bit, get at it. I'm going to take the bobbin thread and I'm just going to pull it right out. Need a little more down the line. Taking the bobbin thread and pulling it right out of there. Yeah, I got the bobbin thread. And when I flip it back over, this ugly stitching that you can see on the outside, you can just take it and pull it right off. There we go. Perfect pant ruffle. So the next step we are going to take is to top stitch that pocket lining. So I'm going to use a zigzag stitch, probably a length and width of around 2. We'll give that a shot and see how that looks. There we have it. That's from one side. Here's the other side. Oh, I skipped stitches a little bit. Oh well. There you go. Right, now we need to add our pocket bags. So we are going to find the correct pocket bag and we're going to line it up along the curve. We are sewing it only to our pocket lining. Go ahead and pin along that curve all the way to the top of the joggers. There we go. So we have the pocket bag pinned to the pocket lining, and we are going to sew only the pocket bag and the lining, not the jogger front. We're going to sew all the way along this curve, all the way up to the top. Again, not sewing the jogger front, just the pocket bag and pocket lining. I'm just going to go ahead and do that on my serger. If you do not have a serger, you can use a zigzag stitch or a stretch stitch on your sewing machine. Okay, so I've now sewn all along my pocket bag and pocket lining. See, it's all sewn together. This side is still open here, and at the top it's still open there. So what I like to do to prepare for next steps is I like to line it all up right there at the top jogger and add a pin right at the corner of the pocket bag and pocket lining, just to keep it in place. And I'll add another pin over here. Make sure everything's lined up right there. And I'll do the same over here, so I'll line that all up properly. Add a pin down here at the corner. Here, the top of the pocket. Just like that. Now if we flip it over, you can see how our pocket is going to look. And there you have it. That completes our day number 2, and we will see you tomorrow for completing our leg ruffles.